Good morning, Bishop Allan here. This morning I want to share with you some of the contents of a report that I submitted at the Diocesan Standing Committee yesterday. It was such a special and blessed occasion. Firstly, in our devotions, before we started the meeting, we've read, as we did over the last week, from the letter of St. Paul to the Thessalonians. And yesterday's portion was from 2 Thessalonians chapter 3. And the third verse, 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 3. It says, "But the Lord is faithful. The Lord will strengthen you. The Lord will guard you." It was so special to hear. It was so special to enter that meeting where our deliberations were going to be clouded with the harsh realities of the COVID-19 pandemic. It was so special to hear these words of assurance. The Lord is faithful. He will strengthen you. He will guard you. The Lord gives to us what we need before we have even asked for it. And so I share these words with you as well. The words of St. Paul to the people of Thessalonica are words that speaks to us powerfully this morning. The Lord is faithful. The Lord will strengthen you. The Lord will guard you. Remember this during these days of uncertainty. So this COVID-19 pandemic, it shows no sign of slowing in South Africa. Our statistics, they compare well with worldwide figures, and especially with more developed and better resourced countries. But the one thing that we're unable to do as yet, we cannot flatten the curve, to use the phrase that people throw around these days. We need to flatten the curve. Our curve continues to show an upward trend, an increase. We stand at 13,524 positive cases. We stand at 247 deaths. The stats continue its upward climb. It has not flattened out, which means that we have not yet reached its peak. We have not yet seen the worst of the pandemic in South Africa, and that is worrying. It is actually frightening because we don't know what kind of numbers we are in for. We shouldn't be taken to task then when the reality of the continuous upward curve fills us with trepidation and fear. It is challenging not to yield to fear in the face of this continuous upward curve. This experience of uncertainty and fear mirrors in many ways that of the disciples of Jesus after his death and burial in the tomb. Like those disciples at the time, we live in an atmosphere of anxiety, of uncertainty, and of fear. In the midst of that experience, they continued to be who they were. They continued to accompany each other. In the end, the risen Christ found them together in the upper room, accompanying each other, finding strength in each other's company, and continuing to be identified by their unique calling. The only thing those people had in common was they were all called by Jesus Christ. Like you and I, we are called by Jesus. Catastrophic events, friends, like COVID-19 is overcome firstly by human accompaniment, by human solidarity, to use a more modern word. We must therefore continue to act as one people. The medical professionals, the government, the religious sector, all people are faced with the same threat. And we must act in solidarity, accompanying each other. Now is not the time to question the right of government to forbid communal worship or to close shops and schools and everything else. We are not sacrificing our church tradition in order to pursue an agenda that is set by government. There are very solid and theological and pastoral reasons why we are in solidarity with government and others to prevent the spread of a very dangerous virus. This time, now, is the time for us to accompany those in the front lines and to join hands with all people who consider life sacred and to work with such to safeguard life. The sacraments and our rituals are sacred, but we must remember life is sacred too. And we must be mindful of the teachings of Jesus at this time. The Sabbath, he said, the Sabbath was made for humankind, not humankind for the Sabbath. It's like I hear Jesus say, the sacraments was made for humankind, not humankind for the sacraments. We must do what we can to avoid our church premises and institutions become sites of infections. And if this means a temporary abstinence of the sacraments, then we must accept it, because God has given these wells to humanity to drink from and not the other way around. What we need to accept now, friends, is that the protocols of social distancing, the wearing of masks and sanitization are going to be with us until a vaccine is developed and readily available. The National Command Council has the religious sector opening up only after alert level 1. Indications are that alert level 1 will only be declared towards the end of the year or even later. So we are looking at the Advent or Christmas season for a return to what we are used to. In the meantime, we have to start to adjust. Most of our churches have already started to adjust. They've been able to employ social media tools to involve the holy faithful people of God in worship, in mission, and in ministry. And we will have to build on this, as we cannot wait for a return to what we were used to. We must work on reimagining the ways in which we minister to the people of God, reimagine our understanding of community and fellowship, reimagine how to involve the people of God in our sacred rituals. All of this without physical assemblies. This is a tough call. Don't underestimate it. It's a tough call because fellowship and community are hallmarks of our Christian ethos. What is a church without fellowship? What is a church without community? But we cannot wait for normal to return before we can have fellowship again, before we can be community again. We have to create new ways of being community. We have to create a new normal. We have to be flexible and reimagine new ways of being church. It is encouraging to see how our clergy, our institutions, and our guilds have already begun to meet the challenges of this new reality. A survey amongst our clergy in this diocese revealed the extent to which our clergy and parishioners have already started to reimagine and recreate new possibilities out of what at first looked like doom and gloom. It is clear, my friends, that the darkness of the tomb has given way to light. That stone in front of the tomb has been taken away because the church, the community of the faithful, is beginning to assume a new life in a very real sense of the word. We are beginning to be a new church in these circumstances of isolation. Our survey has revealed which clergy and which parishes are lagging behind in finding new ways of being church. We shall do our best to assist them. The survey has also revealed two other important findings. And the first is that it is worth investing in technology like Zoom, like Microsoft Teams and others, that allow us to engage with each other on a virtual platform. We want to encourage our parishes to take up a subscription so that it can have, without limitation or restrictions, Meetings of church council, of church executive committees, of guilds, of organizations, and so on. A Zoom subscription or something similar will allow us to teach confirmation, to do Bible studies, and to engage in other discipling activities. A subscription of this kind will also allow for virtual engagements like acts of worship, a virtual Eucharist. The second finding of our survey is an opportunity to move from our reliance on cash for collections and dedicated giving. The lockdown period should be used to teach and encourage the use of stop orders, of SnapScan, of EFTs and other electronic means of giving. Our continuous use and reliance of cash has already proven costly in terms of bank fees. Now is the time to change it. The most painful part of the COVID-19 pandemic so far is the economic consequences of the national lockdown. They are felt deeply by all and sundry, and we are not saved from this. Church income has taken a nosedive. We were able to pay salaries for April, but applications to the Unemployment Insurance Fund were made for 31 church workers for this month of May. 5 of that 31 is on the diocesan payroll, while the rest work for parishes as secretaries, as cleaners, and as gardeners. The painful reality, the stark reality that we're faced with is that very little money is received in the diocese at a time when our reserves are already almost depleted. It is worrying, it is frightening to be around at this time in the church and to bear the responsibility of leadership. But I want to remind you of where we started this morning, how blessed we were to hear those special words, 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 3. The Lord is faithful, Paul says to the Thessalonians. I hear the Lord say to us, I am faithful, I will strengthen you, I will guard you. And I want to conclude with a word from one of my favorite Christian leaders of our time, Pope Francis. I read his words, his work. I've got 3 biographies of Pope Francis written by different people. I follow him on social media and so on, because he inspires me, such a deep, passionate Christian. Pope Francis said these words recently that I want to hold before you. And he quoted from Virgil. I quote, "The counsel is not to give up, but save yourself for better times. For in those times, remembering what has happened will help us. Take care of yourselves now for a future that will come." Indeed, friends, the Lord is faithful. The Lord will strengthen us. The Lord will guard us. We shall overcome. Take care of yourselves now for a future that will come. God bless you.